You've seen it, right? AI images going viral, people typing in prompts like Van Gogh style, but with cyberpunk Tokyo, or a dragon painted like a Renaissance portrait. And within seconds, boom, you get a polished museum-ready artwork. Some people look at that and say, wow, that's the future of creativity. Others look at it and say, that's not art, that's plagiarism, that's theft, dressed up with fancy algorithms. So who's right? Well, like most things in art and philosophy, the answer isn't simple. It's layered, messy, and deeply human, even if we're talking about machines. In this video, we're going to explore this debate. We'll break down what creativity actually means, how AI learns to make art, the theft argument, the pro-creativity argument, and finally, what this all means for the future of human imagination. So, grab a coffee, settle in. Let's talk about whether AI art is really creative or just copying. Before we can even touch AI, we need to ask, what is creativity? Is creativity about originality? Is it about skill? Is it about expression? When you think about Picasso, Shakespeare, or Miles Davis, you don't just think about what they made. You think about how they made it, the risks they took, the personal touch, the fingerprint of the artist's soul on the canvas, the page, the melody. But here's the catch. Creativity has never been about making something out of nothing. Think about it. Every artist borrows. Every writer is influenced by the books they've read. Every musician is inspired by the songs they've heard. Creativity is often described as remixing. You take what came before, twist it, reshape it, and make it your own. There's a famous quote, often misattributed to Picasso, that says, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." If that's true, then how different is AI really? Because what AI does, at least on the surface, is take what it's trained on, remix it, and spit out something new. Isn't that just a machine version of what humans do? Well, maybe. But let's hold that thought. Here's the part a lot of people misunderstand. AI doesn't sit down with a canvas, feel inspired, and start painting. There's no muse whispering in its ear. What AI art generators actually do is this. They're trained on massive data sets of images, many scraped from the internet, millions of paintings, illustrations, photographs. The AI doesn't remember those images in full. Instead, it analyzes them. It learns patterns, shapes, brushstroke styles, how colors tend to blend in different genres, how composition works in landscapes versus portraits. So when you type in a portrait of a cat in the style of Van Gogh, the AI isn't pulling up a Van Gogh painting and pasting a cat onto it. It's generating a new image, pixel by pixel, based on probabilities it learned from all those training images. It's a remix machine on steroids. But here's where the ethical debate comes in. The AI was trained on other people's work. Many of those artists never gave permission for their art to be used in the dataset. And yet their labor, their creativity, their fingerprints, their soul, in a sense, becomes fuel for the AI's output. So the question becomes, if the AI makes something new, but that new thing depends entirely on human-made inputs, is that creation? Or is it just very fancy theft? Let's start with the critics. For a lot of artists, AI feels like someone breaking into your studio, rifling through your sketchbooks, and then selling copies of your style for profit. Imagine you spent years developing a personal style, something unique, something recognizable. Then suddenly people can type, "Draw me a landscape in your name style" into a generator, and the machine spits out something that looks almost indistinguishable from your work. And worse, clients who used to pay you might say, "Why would I hire you when I can get something faster and cheaper from an AI?" That feels like theft on two levels. Style theft, copying what makes your work uniquely yours. Economic theft, undermining your ability to make a living. Artists argue that AI is parasitic. It feeds off human creativity without consent, without credit, without compensation. And here's where it gets messy. If a human artist copied your style directly, you could call them out. You could sue for plagiarism. But an AI? Who do you sue? The company, the user, the algorithm. So to many, AI art isn't just theft. It's theft without accountability. But hold on, let's flip the coin. Supporters of AI art argue humans learn the same way. When you were a kid, how did you learn to draw? You copied cartoons. You imitated comic book styles. You sketched Disney characters until your hand hurt. When musicians learn guitar, what do? They play covers, they copy riffs from their favorite bands. Writers? Same thing. You read novels, absorb the rhythms of sentences, and unconsciously mimic them. So if we are sponges who learn by imitation, why should AI be held to a completely different standard? And here's another thing. AI art isn't made in a vacuum. A person still has to write the prompt. They have to imagine the concept. They often refine the output, combine images, tweak, edit. In that sense, the AI is a tool, like a paintbrush, or Photoshop, or a camera. When photography first appeared, painters said, that's not art, it's just a machine copying reality. And now photography is considered one of the highest art forms. So maybe AI is just the next tool. Not a replacement for human creativity, but an extension of it. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Both arguments are true in some way. Yes, humans copy to learn. Yes, AI is trained on human work. But there's a big difference: consent and control. When you learn as a human, you don't have access to billions of artworks instantly. You don't churn out replicas in seconds. And crucially, you eventually develop your own voice. AI, on the other hand, doesn't have a voice. It has no lived experience, no childhood memories, no heartbreak, no late-night epiphanies. It just has data. So when AI makes art in the style of Van Gogh, it's not channeling Van Gogh's inner torment, his brushwork driven by madness and beauty. It's channeling a mathematical average of what Van Gogh paintings look like. That's not the same as human creativity. But then again, what if creativity doesn't have to come from pain or personal history? What if creativity is just about making something new, something striking, something meaningful to the viewer? If an AI-generated artwork moves you, makes you cry, or inspires you, isn't that real art regardless of how it was made? This is the paradox. We've been here before. Photography threatened painting. Painters worried they'd become obsolete. Instead, photography became its own art, and painting evolved into impressionism, abstract, modernism. Digital music threatened live musicianship. Now, digital production is one of the most respected art forms. Sampling in hip-hop was once seen as theft, taking bits of older songs. Now it's celebrated as a creative act of transformation. Every time a new technology emerges, people cry theft. And every time, some form of creativity survives and even thrives. So maybe AI art isn't the death of creativity, but the birth of a new chapter. But here's what we can't ignore. The danger isn't AI itself. The danger is how we use it. If corporations exploit AI to cut costs and replace human artists, that's not creativity. That's capitalism using technology as a weapon. If people flood the internet with AI content that drowns out human voices, that's not creativity. That's noise. But if AI becomes a tool, something you use to brainstorm, to visualize, to experiment, then maybe it expands creativity instead of killing it. The line between theft and creativity may not be about the machine at all. It may be about ethics, consent, and intention. So where do I stand? Here's my take. AI art is real, but it's not the same as human art. It's creative, but lacks depth and complexity. It can remix endlessly, but it doesn't feel, it doesn't struggle, it doesn't dream. And those things, the messy, painful, human things, are what give art its soul. But does that mean AI art has no value? Not at all. It means we need to treat it differently. Credit sources, compensate artists whose work trained the model. Be transparent, use it ethically, because art isn't just about the final product. It's about the process, the story, the connection. And as long as humans crave meaning, not just images, there will always be a place for human creativity. So does AI-generated art count as creativity, or is it theft? The truth is, it can be both. It depends on how it's made, how it's used, and whether we respect the humans who laid the groundwork. What's clear is this: AI is here. It's not going away. The question isn't whether it's art. The question is, what kind of art do we want it to be? Because at the end of the day, AI doesn't decide that. We do. So maybe the better question isn't, is AI creative? Maybe the better question is, what does human creativity mean in the age of AI? And that's something only time and us can answer.